I want you to stop whatever you're doing for just a second.
Just, take a pause.
Yeah, pause and really think about the systems you interact with every single day.
Like the laws you follow.
Right, the laws, the way your money works, the education system you grew up in, even the political structures that govern your town or, your country.
It's all around us.
It is. Now, I want you to ask yourself a slightly jarring question.
Oh, it's definitely a jarring one.
Were those systems actually designed using the absolute best, modern knowledge available to us today?
Or are we just walking around using outdated blueprints?
Exactly. Just using them simply because we're used to them.
Because it's all we know.
Right. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into a fascinating excerpt from a show called Time Traveler's Paradox.
It's such a great source.
It really is. It features this analytical dialogue between two commentators, Nick and Maya, and they're breaking down the philosophy of a figure known only as the time traveler.
Which sounds like sci-fi, but it's actually incredibly grounded.
Totally. The mission of our deep dive today is to explore this radical paradigm shift they discuss. It asks us to just stop searching for this mythical perfect society.
Right, because it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And instead, it asks us to redesign civilization itself as an ongoing, evidence-based experiment.
And right off the bat, I think we need to establish the vibe here, right? We need to frame this purely as a mechanical challenge.
Not a political one.
Exactly. Not political, because usually, when the conversation turns to redesigning laws or economics, the walls immediately come down.
Oh, instantly. Everyone gets defensive.
Right. People retreat into their camps. It's capitalism versus socialism or tradition versus progressivism. But this deep dive and the source material itself, it asks us to just suspend those tribal allegiances for a minute.
Just put them aside.
Yeah. We are stepping way back to look at the foundational operating system of human progress, not the individual apps running on the system.
I like that analogy.
Thanks. It's really an analysis of how civilization processes new information. Or, I guess, more accurately, how it currently fails to process new information.
Man, fails is the right word. Because to understand that operating system, we really have to look at the reality of what we inherit the exact moment we're born.
Which is everything, basically.
Right. Maya, one of the commentators in the text, she points out this dynamic that is so obvious, it basically becomes invisible to us.
It's just the water we swim in.
Exactly. Every single generation inherits a world created entirely by the generation before it.
We didn't build it.
No. We just accept it. The languages, the laws, cultures, traditions, economic and political systems.
Yeah.
We just take them almost entirely without question.
We really do.
Think about inheriting civilization. Imagine moving into a fully furnished, centuries-old house.
Okay, I can picture that.
You get the keys, you walk in, and you look around, and, the plumbing knocks loudly in the middle of the night. The wiring is a total fire hazard.
Right, it's just a mess.
And the layout of the rooms makes absolutely no sense for how you actually live your life today. Like the kitchen is isolated way in the back because centuries ago, that was the standard for servants.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That makes sense historically, but not now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But instead of changing it, what do? You just unpack your boxes.
You just deal with it.
Yeah. You trip over that one weird step in the hallway every single morning, but you just accept it as, the reality of the house. You never once consider that you hold the sledgehammer.
That's such a good way to put it. You have the sledgehammer.
Right. You have the power to knock down a wall, rip up the floorboards, and update the plumbing to modern standards.
Yeah.
But we just don't.
And that realization, the fact that we are holding the sledgehammer, that's what the source material frames as the blank slate theory.
Ah, okay.
And we should clarify, in this context, it's not about the psychology of human nature.
Right. It's not the psychological blank slate.
Exactly. It's a profound observation about our structural relationship to the societies we live in. Yes, we are dropped onto a blank slate in the sense that we're born into complex economic and legal structures we had absolutely no hand in designing.
We didn't draw the blueprints.
Right. But because we are a new generation, we are not those original architects. And that gives us a massive cognitive advantage.
Wait, how is that an advantage?
Because we don't have to defend the original blueprints out of ego. We didn't draw them, so our pride isn't on the line.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense.
Right. We have the objective distance required to actually examine the house and ask, are these load-bearing walls based on the best knowledge available right now?
Which they usually aren't.
Exactly. We have to look at our institutions and ask, Are these optimized for today? Or are they just, like, slight incremental tweaks on ideas formulated centuries ago?
Formulated by people who, honestly, didn't even understand germ theory.
Let alone complex behavioral economics or systems engineering.
Right? It's wild when you frame it like that. So, okay, if we accept that the societal house needs a massive remodel, we immediately hit a logistical wall.
Which is...
What framework do we even use to remodel it?
Yeah.
And this is where Nick comes in during the dialogue. He argues in the source text that we should apply the scientific method to civilization itself.
The scientific method.
Yeah. I mean, think about how the scientific method actually functions. It is completely unique among human disciplines because it fundamentally rejects the concept of perfection.
It never claims to have all the final answers.
Never. Every discovery is open to revision. Every established theory, no matter how cherished it is, it can be challenged tomorrow if contradictory evidence presents itself.
It's built on adaptability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A new generation of scientists comes along, discovers something with tools the previous generation couldn't even fathom, and boom, the paradigm shifts.
And nobody gets burned at the stake for it anymore.
Right. Science keeps moving forward because it has this built-in mechanism for admitting it was wrong.
And that built-in mechanism for revision, that's exactly what our current societal structures lack.
Totally.
If we applied that scientific framework to civilization, an evidence-based society would continuously update itself rather than just, stagnating.
It wouldn't just be stuck in the past.
Right. Instead of locking in an economic model or a legal framework for 300 years just out of some sense of tradition, the society would integrate the latest data.
From everywhere, right?
Yeah, from neuroscience, psychology, ecology, technology. So, for example, if a breakthrough in neuroscience fundamentally changes our understanding of how the human brain processes trauma and addiction.
Which is happening right now, actually.
Exactly. An evidence-based civilization would immediately restructure its criminal justice and healthcare systems to reflect that physical reality.
You wouldn't just ignore the data.
No, it would adapt. Or, if ecological data proves a resource management strategy is mathematically unsustainable, the economic models shift. The friction point in our current world is that we treat laws as sacred texts rather than hypotheses waiting to be tested.
But wait, I have to push back here for a second because this is where the theory hits a very messy human reality.
Okay, let's hear it.
The scientific method deals with objective, measurable facts.
Right.
You can measure the speed of light.
Sure.
You can weigh a carbon atom. Society, on the other hand, is built on highly subjective human beliefs. It's built on moral frameworks and competing ideologies.
That's true. Humans are messy.
Right. People don't even agree on what a good society looks like. So how do you apply a purely objective scientific method to something as nebulous as justice? How do we cross that bridge between hard data and subjective human values?
That is the exact vulnerability the time traveler's philosophy addresses. And the resolution, according to the source material, requires a fundamental rewiring of the questions we ask.
Okay, rewiring how?
Well, currently, our political and social systems are designed to ask tribal zero-sum questions like, which ideology should win? Or who is morally right?
Yeah, it's always us versus them.
Exactly. We treat governance as a battlefield where one rigid theory just has to conquer the other.
So how do we cross that bridge?
The source text argues we must stop asking those questions. We have to replace them with one simple question. What does the evidence show?
Just look at the data.
Right. The ultimate guiding question becomes, what produces the greatest well-being for the greatest number of people without sacrificing justice, freedom, or human dignity?
I mean, I understand the pivot, but well-being and justice, those are still highly subjective terms.
It can be, yeah.
If we are treating civilization like a science experiment, what is the actual mechanism for measuring those things?
The mechanism requires a complete overhaul of how we collect and value data.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right now, if two politicians disagree on, say, an education policy, what happens? They will argue abstract theory on television for a decade.
And nothing gets done.
Right, but in an evidence-based civilization, you wouldn't argue theory. You would run targeted pilot programs in 2 different counties.
Okay.
You'd implement policy A in one county and policy B in the other. Then you just measure the empirical outcomes over, say, 5 years.
Do you actually test it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You measure dropout rates, subsequent income levels, the reported mental health of the students, teacher retention, community engagement. You take the subjective concept of well-being and you anchor it to dozens of measurable data points.
That is brilliant.
And if policy A produces better outcomes across those metrics without infringing on individual liberties, the society adopts it. It literally doesn't matter if policy A was initially proposed by a conservative or a progressive.
The label doesn't matter anymore.
The allegiance shifts from a static ideology to the actual measurable outcome.
Wow. That completely eliminates the ego from the equation. I mean, one approach generates endless polarizing arguments on cable news, and the other just generates an investigation.
It's so much more productive.
It really is. Maya introduces a concept in the source material called the Infallible Society, which I think perfectly captures this shift.
Oh, the Infallible Society. The name is so provocative.
It's deeply ironic, because when you hear Infallible Society, your mind immediately jumps to a totalitarian dystopia.
Yeah, it sounds like an Orwellian nightmare where the state is just never, ever wrong.
Exactly. Some regime that claims perfect infallibility and crushes anyone who says otherwise. But Maya's definition flips that entirely on its head.
How so?
The Infallible Society is not a society that claims it never makes mistakes. It is infallible, precisely because it does not claim to be perfect.
Oh, wow. That's a great distinction.
Right. It begins with questions rather than conclusions. It neither worships a tradition just because it is old, nor does it arbitrarily reject it. Age is completely irrelevant.
It just looks at what works.
Exactly. The society simply examines, tests, measures, and learns. And when better evidence appears, it pivots.
Nick actually expands on this by describing civilization as a living laboratory.
A living laboratory. I like that.
Yeah, though we have to be careful with that phrasing because it can also evoke dystopian imagery, right? Like scientists experimenting on unwitting citizens.
Right, like we're all lab rats.
Exactly, but that is not the premise here. It is about applying rigorous iteration to the systems that serve people. Think of it like A/B testing in software development or clinical trials in medicine.
But applied to local governance and global economics.
Precisely.
Well, if we're turning civilization into a living laboratory that measures well-being, we have to look at the dashboard we currently use to measure success.
The dashboard is definitely broken right now.
It's so broken. Right now, the global dashboard for a successful civilization is basically just one giant dial, and that dial is GDP, economic growth.
This line goes up.
Right. If the line goes up, we assume the system is working flawlessly. But this living laboratory concept expands that dashboard to include metrics that our current systems actively, intentionally ignore.
Yeah, the metrics of success detailed in the text go far, far beyond just economic output. An evidence-based civilization would measure its success by calculating levels of trust, health, knowledge, creativity, environmental sustainability, mental well-being, opportunity, and justice.
That is a crowded dashboard.
It is, but it's a necessary one. And measuring something like trust isn't just a vague philosophical exercise. Sociologists and economists, they already measure it through civic participation rates, the velocity of local business formation, and surveys on social cohesion.
Okay, so imagine what happens to policymaking when you put community trust and mental well-being on the exact same dashboard as GDP.
It changes everything.
It really does. Let's say a government passes a massive deregulation bill for the gig economy, okay? And GDP goes up by 4%.
Huge win, right?
Exactly. Under our current blueprint, the government declares a massive victory. Pop the champagne. But if you look at the other dials on this new dashboard, you might see that financial insecurity has caused mental health crises to completely spike.
Right. People are stressed.
And community trust has plummeted because neighbors are now fiercely competing for scarce, unprotected resources.
It's just collateral damage to the current system.
Exactly. Our current system completely ignores that collateral damage. The Infallible Society would look at that dashboard, see the catastrophic drop in trust and well-being, and immediately declare the policy a systemic failure that needs to be rewritten.
Because perfection is no longer the goal. Calibration is.
Calibration.
The text actually points out that this is perhaps the greatest misunderstanding in human history. We have spent thousands of years searching for perfect leaders, perfect constitutions, and perfect ideologies.
You want the final answer.
We desperately want a document written in stone that solves all human friction forever.
Which is impossible.
Right. Civilization was never meant to be a finished product. It was meant to be continuously calibrated based on new discoveries.
I am going to channel Maya's pragmatic pushback from the text here because I think it is the most obvious hurdle to this entire philosophy.
Yeah, she makes a really good point.
Isn't this level of constant calibration wildly destabilizing? I mean, if every single generation is empowered to pull out a sledgehammer and question the very foundation of our laws, our money, our institutions.
Won't society just collapse into chaos?
Exactly. People need a foundation. There is a deep psychological need to know that the ground beneath our feet is not going to shift every single time a new sociological study is published.
It is a totally valid fear, and Nick addresses it in the source material by drawing a very firm line between destruction and improvement.
Okay, how does he separate them?
Well, the fear of chaos assumes that questioning a system means destroying it. But think about it. When a doctor questions an outdated medical practice, their goal isn't to abolish the concept of medicine.
Right, they just want better medicine.
Their goal is to refine the treatment and save more lives. When an aerospace engineer questions the structural integrity of a fuselage design, they aren't trying to destroy the aviation industry.
No, they're trying to increase safety margins so the plane doesn't crash.
Exactly. Questioning the blueprint is the mechanism of preservation, not destruction. The goal of the living laboratory is not chaos. The goal is evolution.
Evolution. You know, that biological connection is one of the most fascinating layers of the source material for me.
So compelling.
This concept of a continuously updating civilization isn't just some abstract philosophical thought experiment. It's a biological imperative. Nature operates entirely on this evidence-based model.
It really does.
Evolution doesn't get frustrated with the species, discard the entire physical body, and start from scratch. It adapts. It refines. It keeps the biological traits that ensure survival, and it ruthlessly edits out the traits that no longer serve the organism in its current environment.
Nature is literally the ultimate A/B tester.
Yes, and the text connects this directly to human anatomy, specifically our prefrontal cortex.
Ah.
This is the part of our brain responsible for complex reasoning, problem-solving, and long-term planning. It is the literal biological hardware that separates us from purely reactive creatures.
We are built for this.
We are. Our brains are physically wired for neuroplasticity. We build mental models of the world, and when we encounter new data that contradicts those models, our brains undergo synaptic pruning. We literally dismantle the neural pathways that no longer fit the data and build new ones.
Which is incredible to think about.
We are biologically engineered to question our environment and change our behavior based on new evidence.
So the physical structure of our brain dictates that we should be constantly updating our models.
Exactly.
Which means that refusing to change our societal structures in the face of better evidence is actually working against our own biological programming.
We're fighting our own nature.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, we often dress up that stubbornness as a virtue.
Oh, totally.
Think about it. When a political leader refuses to change their mind despite overwhelming empirical evidence that their policy is causing harm, we sometimes praise them as steadfast or, resolute.
They're being strong for holding the line.
Yeah. Right. But viewed through the time traveler's philosophy, that is not strength. It is a profound cognitive failure. It is intellectual stagnation.
Wow.
The true opposite of the infallible society is not a society that makes mistakes. Every society, no matter how advanced it is, will implement policies that fail.
Because you have to test things to know if they work. The failure isn't the problem.
Exactly.
The failure to learn is the problem.
The true opposite of the infallible society is a civilization that keeps repeating the exact same mistakes over and over again, even after it fully understands the mechanics of why those mistakes are happening.
It's just willful ignorance.
It is a society that has the data, sees the measurable harm, and chooses to do absolutely nothing because changing the system would offend tradition.
You know, throughout human history, our grandest narratives, whether religious or ideological, they have almost always promised us finished, perfect worlds.
The utopia.
Right. We are constantly sold the idea of a utopia, a golden age, or some final victory where the struggle simply stops. But the philosophy we've unpacked today offers something much more grounded and, frankly, much more demanding.
It asks a lot of us.
It does. It does not promise us a perfect civilization. It offers us a civilization that learns.
And that requires a monumental shift in human ego. The time traveler leaves us with a profound final thought in the source material, which I think perfectly encapsulates this.
Let's hear it.
The future of our world will not be shaped by those who possess the greatest wealth, the largest armies, or the most entrenched political power. The future will be shaped by those who have the courage to ask better questions, and even more crucially, the humility to change their minds when better answers are found.
The humility to change, that's the hard part.
It really is, and that leads to the ultimate uncompromising question from the text. Are we willing to keep asking whether what we believe is still true?
Man, that is the question that just completely dismantles the ego. Are we willing to ask if what we believe is still true?
It's powerful.
It is. As we close this deep dive, I want to turn this directly over to you, the listener. Think back to that centuries-old house we explored at the very beginning. Look closely at the systems you've inherited in your own life.
The ones you just accept.
Right. The way you work, the economic models you participate in, the specific ways you interact with your community, how many of those are you accepting just because they were there when you arrived?
Probably a lot.
If the scientific method can admit it was wrong and become exponentially stronger for it, why can't our civilization do the exact same thing? What are we so terribly afraid of losing if we actually look at the data and try?
It's a question we all need to sit with.
Furthermore, if human brains are literally wired for continuous iterative adaptation, what happens when our individual cognitive evolution outpaces the rigid societal systems we refuse to change?
That's a terrifying thought.
Are the very traditions you defend the most fiercely the exact things holding humanity back from its next evolutionary step? Leave the blueprints on the table, and we'll see you next time.